not the workshop.
We're on.
He's putting it on now.
Okay.
Show our cash in here. All right, now we're on.
Okay, it's time. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board Member Drake. Here. Board Member Nysel. Board Member Steen.
Here.
Board Member Van Blarkum. Supervisor DeScalfani.
Here. We do have a quorum. We can open up a meeting. We just have a few resolutions we're going to do tonight and try and get through them. But I guess, yeah, we'll just
Did you guys want something?
maybe announce the special meeting, Joyce, if you don't mind.
Sure. Here, kick those out. It's a big crowd, will you? Yeah. Town of Shandaken Town Board calls for a special meeting to review the Pine Hill Main Street TA selection of architects and discuss amendments to the Shandaken short-term rental law. Monday, February 12, 2024, 6 p.m., 7209 State Route 28. Monday, February 12th, 7209, they did all that. The end.
Thanks, Joyce. Jan, would you like to say something about the Pine Hill Main Street Technical Assistance Grant?
Yes, I would, Peter.
Thank you.
The Pine Hill Main Street Technical Assistance Project is a grant from the State Homes and Community Renewal to the town of Shandaken. This was originally a PH2 project that we did in collaboration with the MARC project and the town. The town submitted the application last fall, and we were awarded the grant in December. We put out bids for consultants to help us develop the project. It's a project to develop facades and commercial, mixed-use properties and commercial properties on Main Street in Pine Hill. We're hoping that we can apply for one for Phoenicia when they're ready to do that. So this is our sort of trial run pilot project. It's a very small grant. It's a technical assistance grant. The state provides $20,000. And the consultant comes in after we hold a public meeting with everybody who's interested, both property owners and just anyone who's generally interested. We identify anywhere from 6 to 8 property owners, and the consultants who are typically architects work with them on sort of developing a facade plan for Pine Hill and helping individual property owners think about what they can do to their buildings. This is all sort of preparation for round 2, which is applying to Homes and Community Renewal for rehabilitation money up to $50,000 per unit, and a special $25,000 a unit for people who are doing affordable housing on their second floors. Owners have to put up 25% of the project costs, and they also have to be able to pay for the construction costs because it's a reimbursable grant. So, but it really gets us on our way to doing revitalization in our downtowns. So the MARC project is helping us with this pro bono. We formed a steering committee. I'm on the steering committee, as is Shelley Smith, who is a preservation architect who lives in Pine Hill, and Sarah Byer, who's on the Housing Smart Committee and is a housing architect, and Leah Perloff, who is a Main Street owner in Phoenicia, and we wanted to have someone from Phoenicia to be on the steering committee to help us, to help think about the future in Phoenicia so she can carry it to the next step. So Mark put the bid out, and people had 30 days to respond. We got 2 bids. One is from, the one we're recommending is from Insight Architects, and it's for $22,500. And the second bid, I need to look at the, thank you. Thanks. The second bid is from David Naim Modko Architects, And we chose Insight, this bid does not have a figure, a final figure. He just gave us a square footage estimate of what he would charge to do the work. Because we have a limit, we know how much we have to spend, that wasn't very helpful. And they also did not have experience doing a Main Street program. And because it's Homes and Community Renewal has very strict rules about how you go about doing this, we felt we really needed to go with a firm that had experience. Insight has done this project in Andes, and they've done it in Fleischman, and they work with the Mark project. So we think that this will work out pretty well. So I am, on behalf of the steering committee and the Mark project, recommending that the town enter into a contract with Insight Architects for $22,500. This is also a reimbursable grant, so the town will get $20,000, and the town is required to pay 10% of the project cost, which conveniently is $2,500. So I think it's a good deal. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Somebody kill that cricket.
Did they say when they could start? Can they start?
Well, I think their timetable shows them starting in March.
Okay. Yeah.
And the idea is it's a good question, and to finish by June so that they have a report that we can then contract with the Mark project to submit the building rehabilitation application, which will then go in the summer, and then we'll hear in December, and then we'll start all over again.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Jan? It's a pretty pro forma
Yeah.
start to this endeavor. Hopefully you have some people who are very interested to jump in after we do this and have it should take them, what, 6 months to do a rendering for
It'll be done by June.
by June? Okay.
And I think one of the things we did before we applied is that we went door to door in Pine Hill, and we canvassed property owners about their interest.
Right.
So, I mean, interest is one thing, and applying is something else.
Right.
But I feel pretty confident that we will get between 4 and 8
Okay.
owners who want to hear more about it, and then at least 6 who will jump in.
Okay. Let's pound through the resolutions and.
Kevin, if we hear in 6 or 7 minutes.
Okay.
Yep. Did we do this already?
We did all that. We're
Okay.
just starting at resolutions now.
Resolution 51-24, resolution of time accruals for New York State Retirement System. Whereas the New York State Retirement System requires a report to be filed with their offices listing those employees and elected and appointed officials enrolled in the system. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Shandaken hereby establishes the following as the standard work days for elected and appointed officials and will report the following day's work to the New York State and local employees retirement system based on the timekeeping system records.
Second? Peter?
Debating reading the whole thing.
What was it?
And move its adoption.
Second.
Board Member Drake?
Yes.
Board Member Nysel?
Yes?
Board Member Steen?
Yes.
Supervisor DeScalani?
Yes.
Seen it for 2 weeks, so.
Resolution 5224, accept bid for community renewal technical assistance grant for the town of Shandaken, Pine Hill, Main Street. Whereas the town of Shandaken was awarded a $20,000 grant from New York State Homes and Community Renewal Technical Assistance Grant. Whereas an RFQ is offered for architectural engineering services for Main Street, Pine Hill with New York State Housing Trust Fund Corporation from the Office of Community Renewal. And whereas the assistance of the Mark Project and New York State's Homes and Community Renewal Technical Assistance Grant, New York State Consolidated Funding Application number 130842, and whereas 6 to 8 properties have shown interest in this property, therefore be it resolved.
Insight, 22,500.
Insight. 20, for $22,500 has been chosen to create an architectural design and rendering for Main Street, Pine Hill. And I move its adoption.
Second.
Board Member Drake?
Yes.
Board Member Nysel?
Yes.
Board Member Steen?
Yes.
Board Member Supervisor Discopani?
Yes.
Resolution 53-24, resolution to post notice of public hearing amendment to STR law, moratorium on new STR licenses. Whereas the town can and should revisit new laws to determine what needs to be changed and amended in the best interest of the residents, therefore be it resolved that the town board calls for a public hearing to enact local law number 3 of 2024 for a 6-month moratorium on issuing new STR licenses. Do we need to indicate the date?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
So the next meeting would be the March
March 4th?
4th.
March 4th
Yeah.
at
Well, we have two, so let's say 6:45. So we're starting at 6, and you have two, so let's say 6:30?
6:30.
6:30, I mean, it could be, you know.
6:30 p.m. and move its adoption.
Second.
Board Member Drake?
Yes.
Board Member Nysel?
Yes.
Board Member Steen?
Yes.
Supervisor DeScalani?
Yes.
Resolution number 5424.
Yeah.
Request support and funding for Phoenicia flood mitigation from Ashokan Watershed Stream Management Program, AWSMP. Whereas the town of Shandaken's desire to advance LFA recommended flood mitigation solutions for the primary business and residential area of Phoenicia, several key project objectives. Model different configurations for floodplain enhancements recommended on the Stony Clove and Esopus Creek. Further develop a recommendation to replace and enlarge the Main Street Bridge. Develop feasibility information and model concepts for the flood mitigation actions on Stony Clove Creek that will alleviate flooding in the Phoenicia Central Business District. Evaluate the actions above combined with the replacement of the Bridge Street Bridge. Whereas the town of Shandaken intends to hire SLR Engineering, the town engineer and the consultant conducting Bridge Street Bridge engineering for Ulster County DPW to complete the work with the requested funds. The town will work with AWSMP to finalize the attached RFP to obtain a quote from SLR. The town will continue to seek technical assistance from the AWSMP during project implementation. Therefore, be it resolved, the request of $150,000 to fund SLR to establish the hydrology and hydraulic models. And I move its adoption.
Second.
Board Member Drake?
Yes.
Board Member Nysel?
Yes.
Board Member Steen?
Yes.
Supervisor DeScalani?
Yes. You want to do this one, Robert, since you wrote it?
I can't if you'd like. Speed read. You sure? If you want. Elliot, oh, no. I'm happy.
No, but you go ahead.
Resolution 54-24, resolution established qualifying training activities at the Shandaken Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals. Whereas Shandaken has established a planning board pursuant to New York Consolidated Laws, Town Law TWN Section 271. And whereas Shandaken has established a Zoning Board of Appeals pursuant to New York Consolidated Laws, Town Law TWN Section 267. And whereas both laws specify that members of the respective boards must complete a minimum of 4 hours of training each year, resolved that the Shandaken Town Board establishes the following list of agencies, commissions, associations, universities, other organizations, and private firms or individuals as approved to provide training to meet these yearly requirements. 1. State agencies, including the New York State Department of State, Department of Agriculture and Markets, Office of the State Comptroller, Department of Health, Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Conservation, Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, Hudson River Valley Greenway, and other state agencies. And 2. Associations and professional organizations as offered by the New York State Association of Towns, the New York Conference of Mayors, the New York State Association of Counties, the New York Planning Federation, American Planning Association, the Upstate New York chapter of the American Planning Association, and the Metro New York chapter of the American Planning Association, Association of State Wetland Managers, Urban Land Institute, New York State Bar Association, and New York State Regional Planning Commissions and Boards, including the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board, Herkimer, Oneida Counties Comprehensive Planning Program, Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board, Long Island Regional Planning Board, Southern Tier Central Regional Planning and Development Board, Southern Tier East Regional Planning and Development Board, Southern Tier West Regional Planning and Development Board, Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Board, Hudson Valley Regional Council, Tug Hill Commission, and Adirondack Park Agency, and county boards and federations including any county planning board, regional council, or municipal planning federation established pursuant to Article 12 of New York State General Municipal Law, and universities and colleges, the Albany Law School Government Center, Pace Law School, Cornell University and its cooperative extension, SUNY ESF, and other universities and colleges with a degree program in land use planning, and approved local municipal training, any training that has been approved by resolution by the Shandaken Town Board. 7, online planning and zoning training programs is offered by the New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, Pace University and Land Use Law Center, and the Lincoln Institute of Land Use Policy. And 8, private firms and individuals where such training is sponsored by any of the above when pertaining to updates on land use, environmental statutes and programs, or relevant planning/zoning case law. Further resolved, training may be provided in a variety of formats, including but not limited to electronic media, recorded video, distance learning, and traditional classroom training. Further resolved, it is the responsibility of each board member to submit written confirmation of training attended to the Shandaken Town Clerk. Further resolved, the town supervisor shall have the discretion to approve modifications to this list in response to changes in training providers and/or their curricula, and move its adoption.
Very nice. Yeah.
Second.
The camera was off. Can you do it again? Second.
4 hours of training. That is not changed by this
And
law.
that reading this counts as one. So you know. Board Member Drake?
Yes.
Board Member Nysel?
Yes.
Board Member Steen?
Yes.
Supervisor DeScalani?
Yes.
Resolution 56-24, resolution certifying planning board ZBA training. Whereas Shandaken has established a planning board pursuant to New York Consolidated Law, Town Section 2, TWN, Section 271, and whereas Shandaken has established a zoning board of appeals pursuant to New York Consolidated Laws, Town Law-TWN, Section 267, and whereas both laws specify that members of the respective boards must complete a minimum of 4 hours of training each year, and whereas the training may be waived or modified by resolution of the town board when, in the judgment of the town board, it is in the best interest of the town to do so, and whereas the Shandaken Town Board recognizes that the process for completing recorded training was not fully clarified and that training was especially difficult to complete during COVID, resolved, the Shandaken Town Board establishes that the training requirements for all current zoning board of appeals and planning board members are certified in full for 2023 and prior years. Members are expected to receive a minimum of 4 hours of training for calendar year 2024 and all subsequent years, and move its adoption.
Second.
Board Member Drake?
Yes.
Board Member Nysel?
Yes.
Board Member Steen?
Yes.
Supervisor DeScalani?
Yes. Very good. I have a bit of housekeeping. The clerks, the court clerk needs an auditor each year. They have to submit to us, the town, monies that have been coming through and time and all that. And it's like maybe 2 sheets of paper, 10 minutes long to audit what's been done and what hasn't, to certify that all that they're doing is up and up. And I need a volunteer who would like to be on that call.
Somebody just check the paperwork?
Just check the paperwork. It's a 10-minute.
Yeah.
Is this scheduled?
It's due by the end of this month. Wendy has the paperwork. It's 2 sheets of paper that needs to be gone through and validated.
You were about to almost, so then.
Flip a coin. I don't have it. I don't care.
Why don't we both say we'll do it, and when it gets scheduled, I'm sure one of us will be able to cover it. Does that work?
Works.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Does anyone want to be on the top of the coin and somebody on the bottom?
Heads.
Heads for Robert. Okay. We have a few extra minutes.
Did you want to do
Pancake dinner. Yes, we make a motion, we accept the resignation of James Amenta for the Assessors Board of Review, the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and,
Rock Cut Park, yeah.
yeah,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Mary Herman for the CAC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The easy one is the CAC. We have like 3 alternates. We have to choose who to put in there. One is Mike Chaffee. Another is Caleb Frank, who this is his last year anyway. I think by the fall he's going off to college. And we have a new resident, Maya Lilly. We don't have to decide tonight, but just to let you know. But put it out there that we need somebody for the Assessors Board of Review. figure out what we want to do with the comp plan, if we want to just leave it at that number or add someone or go from there. And further.
Rock cut is fine.
Rock cut is fine as it is, okay.
So we can talk about that tonight at the comp plan meeting.
Right. Good deal. And we have some time. There's a few members of the home sharing. You would like to speak? Yes. We have time.
Okay, great. So, on behalf of the Shandaken Home Sharing Association, we're a group of long-term, short-term rental owners that were around when the original short-term rental law was being discussed. And I think everyone in the community, little by little, is realizing that there need to be some additional safeguards and tools for enforcement that were not in the original law. So we got together and put some proposed recommendations that could be added to the law, some of whom are very straightforward, like don't allow renters of houses to become STRs. In other words, you have to own that property. But there is a changes on caps. So I want to just explain those briefly. We do have a cap on STR license numbers for different categories: resident owners, non-resident owners. That is in existence, but we find that there needs to be also some regulation on how many actual rental units are owned by each owner. So that's in this recommendation list. Also, how many actual properties one owner can rent out as an STR. So that's not regulated at this point. The only thing that is regulated is the number of licenses. So on one license with the current law, STR owner can rent an unlimited number of STRs on the property. So I suggest that we make a limit on how many each owner can rent. And so that's listed here. And so that each rental unit can have a separate license rather than one license covering all the units on the property. That's going to affect the cap. So it's going to need to be figured out again. I suggest the cap still be related to the owners. So right now, each owner has one license. Each license refers to one specific property. But one license on one property right now can cover several STR units on that property, and it's still one license. So what we're suggesting is that for resident owners who live on the property of the STR, there not be a cap, and that's the current law. For resident owners that live off the property, which is called owner secondary, there would be a cap of and that would be refigured based on the second recommendation, which is each rental unit require a separate license. Right now, it's only each property, but each rental unit has a separate license. That means if you have one property, you're renting out 3 units on the property, you now will have to get 3 licenses, which will obviously affect the number of SCRs counted, and then we'll have a better idea of how many STRs we really actually have in town. We're now just counting for the cap, each license, which is each property. Then the other thing is, some owners now are taking advantage of not regulating the number of properties each owner can rent out. So we're suggesting a cap on that for non-resident owners, we only allow one property to be rented out as STR. And for owner secondary, 1. For owner primary, the maximum of 2. Owner primary being living on the property that you're renting. So that's the one thing that I think might need a little more discussion to figure out the best way to do it. But what this looks like to me, the most fair way of doing it, that limiting the number of STRs per owner in some way that makes sense. So if you're doing that, you're lowering the number of STRs in town, which is, I think, what people are after in the best way to do it. Just lowering the cap means that you're not really lowering the number of units, you're just lowering the number of owners. If this is instituted as a change in the law, some current owners who have multiple properties would have to be put out of business on the ones over the maximum. In other words, they would only be able to have one. One easy way to deal with that is just to make the law take effect at the time the law is passed, and then anything previously owned would be grandfathered in. I hate to use that word grandfather because some people get it, they don't like the word, but it seems like that's the only way to be fair, rather than just saying, okay, well now you can't do it anymore. Just saying, well, from here going on, we're not going to allow new people to do it or new properties to be rented. Also, we're not going to allow apartments to be converted into STR units. That's also in these recommendations. I think people are pretty much in favor of that. And let's see what else. We've got something in here about changing the 1-year waiting period before you can, you have to own the property for 1 year before you can rent it as an STR. Corporations tend to not have a problem with that, it seems. They've got the money to wait it out. So we recommend you consider making that 2 or 3 years. And the main reason for doing that is that it just doesn't seem to be deterring people that much. That's our opinion anyway. I think, Joyce, you might have some.
It does
feedback
deter
about-
them,
but
but
that-
it does deter them.
It does deter
Yeah,
some,
we've
yeah.
turned away many people who have decided to go 10 miles up the
Well,
road.
that's reassuring.
Which is
So
what we've
that's
done.
a suggestion.
So it does help, but yeah, I'm all for that
Because they
too.
call before even buying the place. Generally,
now
they
they
want to
do.
know how hard it's
Yes.
going to be to get the license.
Well, now I've warned them too that we're making changes and we may not even offer them. We don't know. They're
Yeah.
talking about lowering the cap. So
Right.
that's what I've been telling them, and then, so
Right.
they're not gonna put the money out.
And just to remind you guys, 99% of the points that you brought up, we beat over the head for months and months during workshop meetings. But we'll beat it a few more times around the bush and see what we come up with. We have 6 months to put our heads.
Most of these are not new. I mean, the rental arbiters I never heard of before, but that's just one thing that's probably easy to
Right,
institute.
but we even
Yeah.
talked about that.
And STRs being prohibited on any vacant property that does not contain a dwelling unit. I don't think that came up.
No.
Sounds pretty straightforward. We don't want people to just put up something on a vacant lot and call it an STR. And for all we know, that might be already happening. Penalties for those who advertise unlicensed STRs for rent. If somebody is found to be on Airbnb or one of the platforms without a license, there's really no penalty for doing that. And there really should be, because we need a deterrent for people doing that. And we question whether they should even be able to get a license after that, since I think the law's been in effect long enough now that people should know about it.
Well, it's a violation not to run an STR without a license.
Yes, but do we have penalties for that?
We do, oh yeah.
Um,
All the penalties are for everything. It starts out at like $100 and then it goes up to $250, just like the penalties for any violation in our town code book.
Okay, so that actually
Very
applies
much.
to anybody, not just license holders.
Exactly.
Okay, I must have read the law wrong then. So then that's actually in the law.
And it really, I guess, would be up to the licensing office that if they are in violation, if they should get one in the future. I mean, I talked to the attorney about that way back,
Right.
because there was somebody on our wait list and we caught them renting
Yep.
under 30 days. So I
Yep.
called them up, and that was the guy that was crying, he apologized, his wife got on the phone. And they took it off, and they did eventually get one. But that was like sketchy. It was like, okay,
Right.
I could say it to this guy, but they were really, you know, it was just a call, you know,
Right.
but that's my prerogative, I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
And if they can't follow the law, they shouldn't, you know, be allowed to go.
agreed.
So then, Joyce, you feel that the law actually written as this says that would warrant forfeiting the ability to get an STR license in Shandaken?
I would
You
say,
feel
yeah.
that would be fair?
I would think it would be fair. It could be added to the law to make it easier in
That's
our
what I'm
office,
thinking,
definitely, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, sure, because, you know, people are,
Section 8, paragraph G spells out pretty much what Peter said.
Mhm. Right, good. Temporary structures such as tents, trailers, and RVs. Now, tents, trailers, and RVs are obviously temporary structures. And we, right now, don't have any regulation at all on them because they don't appear on the town code, and that's one of the things we kicked around a lot. People are doing that, so.
We know, yeah.
Yeah,
We're aware.
and so we recommend that they not be given licenses, but that licenses be required for yurts, which is fair, and that they, if they meet the licensing requirements and the fire and safety inspection, like the other STRs.
It was a
they should-
whole, you know, it's just like we saw in the last town from, what's it called? You know, Association of Towns. There was an article about mini houses and,
Tiny houses, yeah.
yeah, tiny houses.
That's another gray area, which I
And-
didn't mention in here.
Exactly. And campers and yurts and tents. It's something that Grace wanted us to move towards doing some licensing or doing something, and I just didn't want to deal with it because I don't find it as a residence. It's not a habitable structure. Why bother?
I think yurts are a different category because they're really more of a permanent structure, and a tiny house is habitable. It just, if the tiny house is on wheels, then it's sort of a gray area whether it's a trailer or temporary structure.
Well,
But a tiny house
I
that
see
has a
people living in
foundation
all
is
kinds
just,
of
yeah.
strange things that they could habitate in, but not under New York state law. Is it a habitable structure?
So I'm with Grace on that. I think we should make a distinction, what we're going to say is habitable and
When I-
rentable, and
when I
what is
asked-
not. And I think,
Thanks for your opinion.
well, it's something that needs to be discussed.
It does, it does.
Are you familiar with any existing laws already written that restrict temporary structures in the way that you're looking for?
And that defines temporary structures the way you have decided to define it? Because I know we have RVs, yurts, tents, and tiny homes in this town that people are occupying, and it's interesting which one has been selected as acceptable and which ones have been selected as unacceptable. And we did debate all of these structures ad nauseum.
Well, I can address why
And-
we're putting that as a different category. Well, personally, I watched this yurt being built. It's been operated as,
I was there, I helped.
okay.
Well, I'm just, if there's some existing language that addresses this, then that, certainly, that was, I think, where a lot of the
Right.
barrier
Yeah.
came up, was finding a way to write this.
Well, the town of Olive has a provision, and the provision, I think, was quoted in when what Carrie originally wrote up that she didn't submit to you, because this is sort of taking off from that. Let's see what it says. I think what it says is yurts are allowed if they meet applicable standards. And I thought that was still a little vague, and that's.
An
why I wrote-
applicable standard doesn't
What
mean
what are
it's,
applicable standards, yeah.
yeah, for a yurt. It's not a living dwelling. It's not a residence.
You mentioned Grace and her ideas of what she would like to move towards. She was saying a tent or a temporary structure on someone's property, one, is the limit. And then if you try to put up 2 tents or 3 tents or 2 RVs or 3 RVs, you'd have to get a.
No, it's a campground.
Then it's a campground, right? Then you need 20 acres and that's all,
Go through.
right.
So that seems to be mostly self-limiting, so you don't have to get into the more complicated issues, but possibly if neighbors, in the context of a neighbor being disturbed by it, there's also provisions for that kind of thing. But it would be a non-owner occupied type of dwelling, if I'm not mistaken, no?
Well, it's on the owner's property, so it's still an owner occupied, even though you're not in the actual, if it were a shed or a camper on your same property, it's still the owner's property. But I don't see the benefit of licensing a yurt or a camper. Give me the reason why you would need to license a yurt or a camper.
Because I don't see the actual harm in it, except that I think you can see harm in not licensing them, unless you're gonna, if you're gonna make a prohibition on anybody living in a trailer or a camper, I think that's just not the way Shandaken lives. You know, the people are living in them, like you said. It may not be the best thing, but people want to reserve the right to do that on their property, if necessary.
And that's a whole
I
other.
know, that's a whole other thing.
Area. We're here talking about STRs. We're not talking
Okay.
about
So this is what
who's living where.
This is what I want to say, that I think it's possible to license yurts without going into all of that and deciding whether everything else is habitable.
Well, because it needs to get inspected, just like a habitable living space would need to be inspected. An inspector's gonna go in and they're gonna look for, to make sure things are safe. Is where's the fire, where's the heat, is it being
Well,
heated?
that's part of the STR requirements, fire and safety inspections.
Of course,
That's what I'm suggesting,
but
that they
I don't
just go in,
see-
see if it's safe, and
Are they safe?
yeah, I think the fire and safety inspector could determine that.
Just to clarify what the town of Olive
Okay,
says. Section 114.4, paragraph M, temporary structures, tents, trailers, and RVs are prohibited for the purpose of STR. Yurts that have not met applicable development standards and that have not been deemed an accessory dwelling unit by the code enforcement officer are also prohibited for use as an STR. So they turn the applicability of a yurt as an STR over to town building code, and it would have to meet ADU requirements.
Now, I don't know what those say, because we don't have them, so we couldn't really ask for that if we don't have standards.
Well,
We have a definition of an accessory dwelling unit in our town code.
we do.
Okay. So-
Which would have to have probably the insulation values, the right kind of windows. The electrical has to be up to code, the plumbing has to be up to code. And you can do that in a yurt, but why not build a permanent structure?
So, anyway, that's something that can be discussed further, because, there's
Yes,
the difference
all
of
of this
opinion,
needs to
and,
be discussed further.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
letter and the
Thanks for the recommendations.
Okay, let me just make sure if there's anything else I thought needed, okay. Oh, provisional licenses. I know that when we were in the process of giving out licenses.
We don't do them anymore, do we?
What?
Provisional licenses? Is it just a
Yeah.
provisional thing you give until they get their
Well,
inspection?
yeah, until they get inspection, we give them something, because, they pay, and then we give them the provisional, then we get that gives us, then we contact the neighbors for their 30-day input period, and then they get inspected.
But there's no provisional related to a renewal, right? A renewal just,
The renewal is just a renewal,
Renewal's
yeah.
just a
Provisional's for the first time, so it gives you that, so we have it, it's almost licensed, and then we notify the abutters,
So
And
that's what we did because we were giving provisional licenses to people
We
who were
wouldn't give-
already STR owners.
But you, well,
But now
no,
that
it was
they're
because of the
applying-
process, you don't wanna give somebody a license off the bat, because once you give it, how do you get it back?
But that's what I'm
You
saying,
know?
is the provisional licenses was so people wouldn't have to cancel the bookings they'd already made when the license was.
That
in
was
your
part
favor.
of it.
No, they shouldn't be
Yeah.
making any bookings until, well, no.
We shouldn't make any bookings
Yeah, the provisional's
while
good
we're
for-
waiting for a license,
the
but since you
provisional.
already were, because there was no licensing.
That was because we were
that's what
concerned
we-
with how long it was gonna take
Yeah.
us to
Right.
process the original onslaught of applications.
Yeah, which it did take a
I don't
while.
see a need for a provisional license anymore.
Well, why would you give a license though before the house is inspected?
You wouldn't, why would you give a
Oh, so
provisional
you
one
just
before
don't
it's
give,
inspected?
oh, you just take out that step, I got you.
Right.
All right, gotcha.
Don't they have to pass a building inspection and get a C of O before they can even apply for,
If it's a new building, of
And-
course,
well,
you know,
No,
but
the short answer is no.
totally renovated?
No, the short answer is no. The vast majority of houses in this town do not have a C of O. My house, which I bought 5 years ago, is, I believe, the oldest house in Shandaken. If not, it's way up there. It served as an STR, as a flop house, as an inn, as long-term rentals, a barber shop, you name it. It did it. It got its first C of O this year.
So that was what I was thinking was the case.
That's why we couldn't require C of Os. It's just too many of the houses here could never have C of Os.
So then to require a yurt to have a whole inspection as if they were going for a C of O would
Well,
put
it's
them
new
in a different
construction.
category.
If you've got a yurt that
200 years
predates
old.
1972, when building code was written, we would have to grandfather it in.
Okay.
Into the town.
Okay, and questions?
no.
Okay, so the hearing will lead to a vote and the moratorium will be in effect next month, right?
Moratorium
Yeah.
Or
is in
the
effect.
Moratorium is in effect on issuing new licenses.
When we do
Yes.
the law,
Yeah.
March.
Okay, in the meantime, you're able to do by resolution, just not issuing new licenses, or
In what meantime?
right now?
No, I mean, the resolution sets that the meeting for that is March
Oh, okay.
4th. So right now, no change until March 4th.
Okay,
Yeah.
but Joyce, is there a waiting list or
For what?
for new licenses?
No, I stopped the waiting list a few weeks, about a month ago.
Great,
So, and there's nobody else on it, they're all sold up and done.
great. Okay, good work.
So right now, the situation is if someone buys up, comes in, for example, an investor comes in and buys up all these,
A person,
all these multi-family homes in Shandaken and starts converting them and applies for licenses, they will automatically just be able to, you grant them a single license for each of those buildings.
In February of 25, they have to own for a year.
you have to own it for a year.
Okay.
Right, and by then you'll change the law that won't allow that.
And we don't have any available licenses
Well, we'll
for
see what
non-residents.
we
Right.
end
You're
up
putting a
doing
moratorium.
throughout our moratorium. But there's still a 1-year wait, as Kevin said.
After they own it. Yeah,
How long did the band have their license?
how long, who, what?
How long did the band?
We call it the mountain home. I call it the mountain, I don't know what the hell the band is, I think it's a big grant, a group, or a band. The mountain home, they have their license, yes.
Yeah, but
They had it for a year.
They
Yeah.
have ownership for a year?
Yeah, well,
Oh,
we
yeah.
had to get through, that's the first thing we asked for. We get a copy of the deed, we circle in red the date, we have a whole system, it's amazing. Oh my God, that first month, oh, you learn pretty quick,
Yeah.
when everything's hitting the fan.
Okay,
Well, there's many more of those, just waiting for the investors to come in on it. It's one of the big problems that they've got.
Or they could drive a half hour up the road and put them there,
Yeah.
which they will.
Well, there's a meeting scheduled for the 4th for the moratorium, so that's
Yeah, it'll be 6 months, do you think? Did it say
It's a 6 month.
6-month moratorium.
good.
Yeah.
so during that 6 months, we should continue to
Yeah.
meet and
That's the purpose
The
of
board will do that. We will continue to meet.
do you have any ideas of when would be the next likely time?
We don't.
7 o'clock first Monday of the month.
7
It was a
o'clock?
joke. Town board meetings.
We know those for sure.
Hearing's already scheduled, so it'll be a long meeting.
So we'll put the public hearing notice in the paper and on the website. And then, and we have the other one related to the SDR, that we're gonna sew up the law on that,
A non-conveyance.
Right,
non-conveyance.
yeah, okay. Well, thank you. That took less than half an hour. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. Does anyone else have anything to chat about?
Shrove Tuesday.
Shrove Tuesday is next, not tomorrow, but the week after. I'll be cooking pancakes. Not tomorrow, week after. Thank you, Joyce. Post that.
It is posted. It's on the website, shandaken.us.
Anybody else make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.